In 2017, I visited the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, New York, and I got to see a great Frank Lloyd Wright special exhibition. I was not doing any narration back then, so I thought I would revisit the exhibits. Frank Lloyd Wright at 150, Unpacking the Archive displayed a variety of the architect's authentic drawings, plans, and physical models for the 150th anniversary of his birth. Wright kept a meticulous collection of his plans and drawings with the intent of forming an archive for the Taliesin Fellowship, although some of his early work was destroyed in the Taliesin fire. Now MOMA jointly owns this collection along with Columbia University. I really like this exhibit because it showed the original designs and plans for many of his buildings, along with a lot of fascinating concepts that were never built. For instance, this is a 1928 plan for House A of the Doheny Ranch development in Los Angeles, which would have been his most ambitious project using the textile block system he developed in California during that time. Here's an illustration of the Winslow House in River Forest, Illinois from 1893, one of his early prairie-style houses in the Chicago area. Here's a rendering of Unity Temple in Oak Park, Illinois from 1905. This was one of his first non-residential works, and I have visited the real thing. It's pretty cool. This is a design for the Gordon Strong Automotive Objective and Planetarium that was proposed to be built on Sugarloaf Mountain in Maryland in the 1920s. The circular structure would have had a spiral ramp to get up, an idea that would be realized in the Guggenheim Museum decades later. Here's an aerial perspective on the Johnson Wax Administration Building in Racine, Wisconsin. This is an authentic drawing of Wright's masterpiece, Falling Water in Mill Run, Pennsylvania. I have had the opportunity to visit Falling Water. It is an incredible house built over a waterfall. This drawing was actually displayed here at MoMA in 1938, in an exhibition about falling water. Here's an aerial perspective of Florida Southern College in Lakeland, Florida, which was only partially built. Here's a sketching of Taliesin West, Wright's winter home built in the desert of Scottsdale, Arizona. Here's a rendering of Wingspread near Racine, Wisconsin, which was built for the president of SC Johnson, while the Wright Design Company headquarters was also being constructed. This is a proposal for a textile mill in India, made by Wright in 1946. This is cool. Wright's design for the Meteor Crater Inn. Frank Lloyd Wright was commissioned to build a lodge on the rim of Arizona's Meteor Crater, which honestly would have been pretty awesome. I elaborate a bit more on that story in my Meteor Crater video. This is a design for the Mazzieri Memorial that was going to be on a prominent position on Venice's Grand Canal. It was to house a foundation established in honor of a young Italian architect who had wanted to work with Wright before his untimely death. It would have been interesting to see a Frank Lloyd Wright structure on the Grand Canal. That's the Jaguar Showroom, a car showroom here in New York City that was built in 1954. Sadly, it was demolished in 2013. This is a scale model of the H.C. Price Company Tower, a mini skyscraper that was designed by Wright in 1952. It does still stand today in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. It is the only Frank Lloyd Wright skyscraper that was ever built. It is 19 stories tall, and the floors are cantilevered like tree branches. Here's the Marin County Civic Center and Fairgrounds in San Rafael, California, which was built after Wright's death. This is the Living City from 1958, which displays Wright's ideas of urban decentralization made possible by modern transportation. Here's a stained glass window from the Darwin D. Martin House in Buffalo, New York. This is the dining room of the Dana House in Springfield, Illinois. I have looked at the outside of this house a few times and would love to go inside, but have not because they do not allow photography for some reason. And here are some more Frank Lloyd Wright designs, including an urn from the Dana House. There is also a display of patterned textiles. Here's a very Frank Lloyd Wright curtain. This is the floor plan for the Annunciation Greek Orthodox Church in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. One of his last fulfilled projects. Here's a 1913 design for Midway Gardens. It was a grand and very elaborately ornamented entertainment complex in Chicago. However, it was demolished in 1929. There is a display of the original plans for the Imperial Hotel. Frank Lloyd Wright designed the fantastic hotel in Tokyo, Japan. Of course, he was a big fan of Japanese prints and designs, so he jumped on the opportunity to design a luxury hotel in Tokyo back in 1919. Tragically, the Imperial Hotel was demolished in 1968. Only the entrance lobby was saved. It is now at the Meiji Mura Museum in Nagoya. It was actually designed in the Mayan Revival style, and was billed as the Jewel of the Orient, as seen on that brochure. While it is now largely gone, seeing these authentic plans for it is really awesome. I actually had a Lego Imperial Hotel as a child. Here are some more drawings of Frank Lloyd Wright's designs in Japan. There's the Odawara Hotel on top, a concept he made in 1917 that would have been built over a waterfall, which reminds me of another one of his structures, and below it is the Jiu Gakuen School in Tokyo from 1921, which still stands. And here's a proposed US Embassy building for Tokyo designed in 1914, which did not get built. Here's a rug design for the Peacock Room of the Imperial Hotel. Those are some peacock chairs from the Imperial Hotel, along with some china and other relics. Here is a mural design for the Dana House by George Mann Niedecken, which features some local plants. Of course, the local landscape and flora was very important to Wright's designs. Here's a drawing of the Sherman Booth House from 1911, a classic prairie school design in Glencoe, Illinois. Here is a bridge designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. Sherman Booth also had him design the infrastructure for his property. They were hoping to turn it into a full-fledged nature preserve open to the public. These are interesting, the plans for the Wolf Lake Amusement Park from 1895. Yep, Frank Lloyd Wright almost designed an amusement park in Chicago. This was one of his earliest opportunities to think about environmental planning. He proposed a large lake with a canal, and a circular causeway, with concessions, gaming, boating, and a bandstand, based from a Beaux-Arts megastructure, inspired by the White City of 1893. I wish Wolf Lake Amusement Park got built. Here's the holographic plan for the San Marcos in the Desert Resort Hotel, which would have been built south of Phoenix, Arizona in what is now Chandler. It would have been a huge and unique project, but the stock market crash killed this luxury resort. That's a graphic design Wright made out for Jens Jensen, a famed landscape architect who also worked in Chicago. Here are some photographs and artifacts related to the Coonley and Martin houses. There's the planting plan for the semicircular floricycle of the Darwin D. Martin house. Here's a model from 1932 of the Davidson Little Farms unit. During the height of the Depression, Wright did not have many commissions, so he started looking to design prefabricated little farms where people could live independently and derive sustenance from nature. This little farm would have had 5 elements: living quarters, a garage, a packing station, a stable, and a greenhouse, all in an open but compact cross-shaped design centered around a silo. It was designed to be cost-effective, unlike most of Frank Lloyd Wright's designs. This poster is from the rural electrification movement. They were trying to get President Roosevelt on board with encouraging Wright's Little Farms idea by tying it into the rural electrification project. And here's a Soviet propaganda poster from the era. I guess the Back to the Land movement was also going on there. It says the Bolshevik struggle for the harvest is the struggle for socialism. Here are some renderings of the Lake Tahoe Resort, a 1920s resort that would have been built on Lake Tahoe in California. This is yet another project I wish they went through with. Here are some illustrations for the Taliesin Fellowship Complex, an architecture school at Frank Lloyd Wright's Taliesin home in Spring Green, Wisconsin, which has since shut down sadly. Here are some plans for the Nakoma Country Clubhouse for Madison, Wisconsin, which was only partially realized. Originally, Wright intended the interior to be decorated with the animal symbols of the 12 clans of the Winnebago tribe. Wright was utilizing/appropriating native architectural forms like wigwams and teepees as well. In 1923, Wright made out this design for the Little Dipper School and Community Playhouse, which was going to be part of Alini Barnsdall's arts compound. This unrealized design served as the inspiration for the also unrealized Rosenwald School. This school would have been funded by the Rosenwald Foundation as part of a project to subsidize the construction of rural schools for African Americans throughout the South, which would require the students to help build the school. That is an early design from 1893 for the Milwaukee Public Library and Museum. This was an unsuccessful competition entry, and clearly relied on a neoclassical design, which is weird for Frank Lloyd Wright, but this is early and it was in fashion at that time. Below it is a rendering of the DeRhodes House in South Bend, Indiana, by Marion Mahoney, who was one of the first licensed female architects in the US, and worked with Wright at Oak Park. This is a design for the doors of the Wainwright tomb at Bellefontaine Cemetery in St. Louis, Missouri. This was sketched out by Wright while he was an apprentice of Louis Sullivan. This is definitely a Sullivan design. Here are some more early concepts for Unity Temple in Oak Park. There's a drawing of the Hanna House in Palo Alto, California from 1936. This is a design for the Rogers Lacey Hotel, a fantastic looking skyscraper designed by Wright in 1946. This was almost built right in the middle of downtown Dallas, Texas. Here's a section study for the hotel. Wright and his apprentices extended the paper several times as the scale of the tower increased. These are awesome. Frank Lloyd Wright's original plans for the mile-high skyscraper. In 1956, he began planning a very ambitious mile-tall skyscraper for Chicago, intended to be placed right on the lakefront. It would have been 528 stories tall, with over 18 million square feet, and parking spaces for 15,000 cars and 100 helicopters. Now the Burj Khalifa, the current world's tallest building, is still over 2,000 feet off from this, so had this been built it would certainly be the world's tallest skyscraper. Those are plans for the Golden Beacon apartment building that would have complemented the mile-high tower in Chicago. Here's an original sketch of the Mile High Tower compared to the Golden Beacon, which looks minuscule in comparison. Here's a model of the Monona Terrace, the Madison Civic Center in Madison, Wisconsin, built right on Lake Monona. Wright began planning this in the 1930s, however it still had not been built by the time he died in 1959. It was finally completed in 1997, though at a significantly diluted scale. It's not nearly as grand as Wright's vision. This is a proposal for the Point Park Civic Center in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which would have been right at the historic point of downtown Pittsburgh. There was going to be a 250-foot tall ziggurat-shaped auditorium, surrounded by a spiral roadway with a colossal ramp. Pittsburgh's skyline would definitely look a bit different. Here's a concept sketch for the Crystal City from 1949, which would have been a colossal complex rivaling the Rockefeller Center within the nation's capital. They were planning on putting it just north of DuPont Circle, so there would be no Embassy Row there if this had been built. In 1957, Frank Lloyd Wright made urban development plans for Baghdad, Iraq, which would have included a university, cultural center, museums, monuments, and an opera house on the outskirts of the city. This case contains some more Frank Lloyd Wright memorabilia, including some accolades honoring America's most famous architect. This is a design for a new sports pavilion at Long Island's Belmont Park, commissioned by Solomon R. Guggenheim. That is a scale model and a plan for St. Mark's Tower, a Manhattan skyscraper designed by Frank Lloyd Wright in 1927. This wood and paperboard model severely deteriorated over the years. It had just gone through a big restoration effort. This is a model of the Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum, a neighboring art museum here in New York City. The unique and excellent modern art museum was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright and opened in October of 1959, a few months after the architect's death. It is a very unique structure. Visitors follow a spiral ramp up through the rotunda, viewing some great artwork. It is honestly one of my favorite museum layouts that I've ever seen. These are drawings of the V.C. Morris House in San Francisco from the 1940s. It would have been a cliffside house suspended over the ocean, overlooking the Golden Gate Straits. However, this project was abandoned because it definitely would not have been stable. Here are some more house designs by Wright, including some for the Jacobs House in Madison, Wisconsin, and a Burlingham House in El Paso, Texas. This is a concrete block design for the Ennis House in LA. And here are the plans for the Jacobs House in Madison, Wisconsin. They commissioned two fairly different houses by Wright. Here's a plan for the never-built E.L. Marting's house in Akron, Ohio, which, like the second Jacobs House, would have been shaped in a hemicycle. And there's a classic Frank Lloyd Wright stained glass window, concluding the awesome Frank Lloyd Wright exhibition at MOMA. I am very glad I happened to see this exhibit, as it was a great way to explore the unique designs and genius of Frank Lloyd Wright. Seeing many of his abandoned projects, and his later overly ambitious projects, was really cool. So I hope you enjoyed seeing this exhibit that happened a long time ago. I do hope to get back to MoMA sometime soon, because it is an awesome and storied museum. I would appreciate it if you could like the video, share it, and subscribe to my channel. I have videos featuring all sorts of interesting museums, attractions, and much more. I do plan on making videos on lots of Frank Lloyd Wright structures in the future, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching.